Hey, listeners. First off, before I kind of get into this little intro, I want to apologize for my voice. We have just finished wrapping up the second annual Hometown Haunts and Hops Horror Convention at Mayflower Brewery here in Plymouth. And my voice is kind of beat up, so if I sound a little different today, I do apologize. But we had a great time. Thank you to all our friends and family who pitched in, and our sponsors. We had so many great sponsors: Brennan's Smoke Shop, One Stop Painting, Shine Through, Window Cleaning, 3V Restaurant, Speedwell Tavern, the Craftapreneur T-shirt company out of Raynham. Oh my God, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. Of course, Mayflower Brewery for helping us put that on. Plymouth Bay Barbershop. They also helped us out with a little sponsorship money. So I want to say thank you to all of them. Without them, it would not have been possible. But we had a really fun time. We had John Castor, the Crypt Keeper, as well as many other talented people. And we're going to be putting up the panels as podcast episodes so you guys can hear what you missed. So this one here is going to be the authors panel, and I want to apologize to Jake. You'll hear that I screw up his name multiple times in this episode. It was a very hectic weekend. I think I figured out why. We had a member of the press there from Bloody Disgusting. His name is Alex, and they don't look dissimilar. I'm not sure if that's true, but I'm going to hang my hat and say that's my excuse. But Jake, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for that continual mix-up, and I guarantee it will definitely happen again, because that's just how my brain works. So enjoy this panel, and hopefully next time you hear from me, it will be less, raspy and gravelly. And thank you to everyone that came out and made this weekend a lot of fun. And here's the panel.
Why would we need the Ghostbusters? I don't understand.
Because, who else are you going to call?
Is it haunted? Are there ghosts here?
No.
Is that what the...
All right.
Is it false alarm?
All right, welcome to the Hometown Haunts and Hops 2024. Ooh, I might still be getting a little feedback. Sorry, Fish. I'm very loud. Our horror authors panel. And we were recording live at Mayflower Brewery in Plymouth, where it never, ever rains. Ever. And I'm going to let the authors introduce themselves, because I'm historically bad with names, and I ran out of time to come by your tables and get the exact pronunciations of names. So let's start at the far end there. Who we got on the end?
My name is Jake Camara. I am the author of The Devil's League. It's the best book ever, but, whatever.
Jake is very humble. And in the middle we have...
Cailin Cecchini, and I wrote the Moon Day series and my new book, The Ghost Story of Tristan and Dolores.
And your last name was really giving me panic attacks. That's why I'm doing this. And next to me is...
Hi, I'm Julie Hutchings, and I've written The Harpy and some vampire books.
And some vampire books. Mm-hmm. So I believe you were all here last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so this year we added the authors panel. We want to have some different offerings to people. What is it? What is it about horror? Because you can write anything. You guys could write self-help or, romance novels or.
Can we all laugh?
Yeah, I don't know why self-help was. All right, I had a really long morning. What is it about horror? Because it is such a, from Mary Shelley on, such a prominent book theme that people love to write in. What is it that drew you to horror?
I mean, I can speak for myself. It's the genre of book that I most consume. So I just naturally, I feel like an AI processor, I can just generate something very similar to this. And from there, it spun out of control into this nightmare of a book. And it's just really fun. For me, I enjoyed writing. I didn't enjoy finishing the book. That was a massive challenge, actually being done.
Do you mean you didn't have an end in mind?
I meant in the sense that I really enjoyed just making more of the book, but there came a time where I had to conclude everything, and that was kind of the biggest chore in regards to writing it. But actually making the book itself was the most fun thing ever. I don't think I could do it in another genre and have this much fun doing it, because something about it is just it gravitates you in. It's fun. It's exciting. The atmosphere and everything. So that's just me.
What about you guys?
It's kind of a weird question for me because I never considered myself a horror writer, even though it's werewolves and ghosts and all those sorts of things.
What do you consider yourself, if not a? I mean,
I primarily thought it was like, oh, it's relationships, it's romance, it's mysteries, just with monsters. But why I was drawn to monsters, I don't know. It was just something I was drawn to as a young tween.
yeah.
And then it never went away. I don't know. It just makes it more exciting to me,
Yeah.
adding that extra element to it.
Do you think it enhances the dynamic of the relationships? Because there's like, you know, if you want to go back to like Romeo and Juliet, like they had the like our families hate each other, kind of heightening the relationship. Where this is like you're a creature of the night or whatever.
Yeah, the stakes are a little bit higher. And,
Yeah.
you know, you can use them as metaphors for things, and I don't know, you just can get more creative and a little more outlandish without it being silly. Well, maybe it's silly, but
Silly's okay. Julie, go on.
Me.
Yeah, you.
Well, I guess I've always been a creep, and that made it.
You said it. not me.
I always have
No,
it, and I'm okay,
okay.
with it. But made it hard for me to connect at a young age with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so it was much easier for me to gravitate towards things that were out of the ordinary, even as a child. So, I was always looking for something extraordinary instead
Yeah.
of ordinary. And, the place to find that was like Dracula, and A Wrinkle in Time and books like that. And even playing like this pinball game actually like really spurred me into the horror genre, which was Xenon. And it was like a weird
Xenon.
robot pinball game when I was like 5. And that was when I really started to be obsessed with scary and weird stuff. And it just came out after that. I was always a reader, and I think it just blends in.
Yeah, it's really interesting because like I'm approaching a landmark birthday, which we won't discuss what landmark that is because
I know the one.
Shut up! It makes me cry, and so like it kind of made me like look back and be like, what made Andy Andy, and like the kind of creepy macabre things that first introduced me to like horror and things like this. I remember like Unsolved Mysteries and Ripley's Believe It or Not and those
Yeah.
things on TV. Like, did you guys have not just a pinball game or like Alex Cailin? Like, did you guys? I'm not
Just a
crapping
pinball
on your.
game.
I'm not. All right, that
It's a
sounded
crazy
mean.
pinball game.
But like, was there something like early on that like that caught your attention and then like wow, that you can look back and be like, oh, it was because my parents let me watch The Poltergeist when I was 6, and that was
Yeah.
a terrible thing. And
I mean, well, first of all, happy 23rd birthday, Andy.
oh, thanks, man. Thanks. Not till January, but
just
thank
wanted
you,
to-
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, soon. What do you give to be 22
Alex is
again?
my favorite person.
Yeah. I don't know. When I was super young, I watched a lot of the Twilight Zone, the super old black and white Rod Serling stuff. And
Holds up.
Holds up so well.
Yeah.
There's like other versions of that show, and that first one's still like the best one ever. But I watched a lot of movies growing up, and of all different genres. But the horror movies to me were like more the interesting ones because I feel like a monster character, you can play a lot of different ways. You can have it just be like an entity like Alien, where there's not a lot of character depth. It's just there to kill people, and that's fun. That's an awesome movie. You could also play it where they're the protagonist. You could also play it where they're just a supporting character and they're just like a feature of the world. There's so many. There's such a malleable concept, and I feel like monsters are what I was drawn to the most. That and superhero movies, unrelated, but you can
I
do
get it.
so much with different types of monsters and like different types of characters like that, or what you would even call a monster. It's just a dude who's like a serial killer. That falls in that category because it's such a malleable thing you can play with. So there's so many types of movies, even in some different genres, that still use that that idea, that horror trope of like a killing entity out there, and it's really fun to see like all different like creatives their interpretations of what that is and what that means and what that can do. So I was I watched like every single one I could get my hands on back when you were getting DVDs from, the store where you could rent them or buy them.
I thought you were going to say Redbox, and I was going to stop the
No,
this
God,
panel
no.
right here.
No, but when I was like
can go.
10 or 12, we went to Blockbuster. We were that kind of family.
Okay.
So, it's fair.
Me
Back when
and
they
Julie
were-
holding up the 23-year-olds at the end of the table here.
Yeah, what I'd give to be your guys'
Yeah.
age again.
Yes. Yeah.
We watched Creature double feature.
Yes. Love that. What about you, Caitlin? Was there something like that traumatized you? Like, are you broken? Like, is that why you write?
I mean, as a kid, I was fascinated and terrified by vampires. I walked in on my mom watching The Lost Boys at the worst scene a 5-year-old could walk in,
So good.
which was when they killed the bikers.
So I was going to say eating the maggots.
No, that's
No, that was gross too. I didn't watch that as a
Okay.
5-year-old, but no, it was when they were killing the bikers, and that terrified me. And then, but
You're
yeah,
like, oh my God, I'm so scared and I want to see the whole thing.
but when it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when I was
Sure,
13, 13, I started watching that, and I think that had a huge influence on me because again, it wasn't just vampires; it was romantic, and it was funny, and it was dramatic, and it was all of it.
And that makes
So, yeah.
sense, like where your novels are like, they're
Yeah,
kind of
I
like
don't know what
romantic
what they are.
relationship things and
Right.
tying it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we get why she's the way she is.
now we know why
Yeah.
you are where you are.
Finally.
I also know though that this is a cool fact that I know that people with anxiety issues
Okay.
they gravitate towards horror books and movies because it gives you a place to focus your anxiety on. So
Oh,
it takes it out of
interesting.
you
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Puts it on the
Huh.
screen or what have you. So
I feel like the opposite happened. I feel like if it's a really good horror movie, you're like more anxious than you were prior to watching
yeah,
it.
but it's not about like, what you're doing.
But it's not about your anxiety.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah,
It's not like
Live vicariously
how
through
horrible you
their
are.
anxiety.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's about how horrible they are.
Exactly. Sucks for you.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means about me. I like bad horror movies. Like the worse, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
So when you are writing, like I've always felt that like artists can't help but put themselves in their work. Is there characters in your book that you're like, that's me? Even if like after you're reading it, where you're like, oh, that's me. Like, like is there
Yeah.
that reflection of you in your books?
Well, a lot of my guys die, so I certainly hope not. But
It's a lot of paperwork. Don't do it today.
exactly. I mean, it's not like you try to do that, but there have come times like I'm 7 or 8 chapters into writing it, and I'll look back and be like, huh, that's interesting. That character would do that in that context, But I actually actively go back and try and change it to make it less like anything that because the last thing I want to do is make like a thinly veiled autobiography. I'd rather just,
Yeah.
have this be something new and original and, I don't know, more
Well,
interesting.
You're none of those things.
Yeah,
so-
no, who wants to read my life? That's not what I'm selling. There's no monsters in my life. But yeah, no, that's it's something I become conscious of. But when you're writing, you don't want to have like an agenda of like I want to put X, Y, and Z in or not. You just want to write what feels best, and you can just revising brain is different than creative brain. You can use that brain later. That's how I see it.
So do you just kind of like fire off ideas and then you go back and you kind of be like, oh, that's no good. I'm changing this.
Yeah, I mean, to the point where I'll even write like a new idea for the same book, look at it and go, this doesn't fit here. I'm going to cut it out and potentially make a different book out of that. That's like a whole situation. So
Yeah.
it depends.
Julie, do you ever have your own whole situations in your book?
Yeah. No, I mean, my first books are, that character is me.
Yeah.
It's, death follows her around. She's obsessed with vampires.
That sounds like Julie.
It's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me.
Death
you
follows
know?
her around. I'm sitting next to her. I'm not kind of.
Yeah. Well, you got that big birthday, And, but
23, 27 is like where like people go, right. So I got like 4 years. I'm good.
no, yeah, it definitely, that first book, running home that whole series, that's absolutely me. I couldn't change that if I wanted to.
Was that
You-
intentional though? Like,
No,
it just
no.
kind of came out that way.
Just kind of happened. And that book went through, God, 20 different phases before I settled on what it was, and it took on a lot of different facets, things that I'm interested in, like old Japanese myths and, strange things like that. And then when I got to the Harpy years and years later, it's like a different version of me, much different than my first books, but she's she says all the things I wish I would say, and I say a lot of things. But I say a lot of things.
I was gonna say I don't even.
But yeah, she's more unleashed than I am, but she's a lot like me. So yeah, you write what you know, right?
Right. Yeah.
Cailin.
She's the quiet one.
Yeah, the first book, nothing like me, and that was intentional. That book was just escapism. Like I made sure she looked nothing like me. She was a lot more outgoing. She was a lot more well liked.
Oh,
but
I like you.
well, never mind.
More mass general pop. Yeah.
But the book I just wrote out, I just put out and that I wrote. She's a lot like me, probably more than I meant her to be. Again, not exactly because I'm not that narcissistic, but yeah, it was way more personal than I intended it to be, and was to the point where I was I can't publish this. But then I was
wow.
well, okay, we will.
That's always the one you gotta put out.
Yeah.
But that's got to be that real challenge between you trying to write what you know and what means something to you, but at the same time is it's such a vulnerable thing being a creative person because you're putting something out that you are invested in ways and a lot of people don't invest in things.
You can't think about that when you're writing it, because for me, the only way I could ever stop writing this book was when I was in a position where I was okay, it's good enough, I have to let it go.
Yeah.
Because hypothetically, I could still be writing it years later. I could still just be oh, I could change this one sentence here. That would harken back to that chapter. I could fall down that rabbit hole. But at a certain point, you just got to be okay, well, they either like it or they don't. Just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Screw it.
And that is, there's a saying that I can't come up with. It's perfection is the, I don't know, something. Basically, if you keep trying to make it perfect, you're never going to get it out.
Yes.
Especially being a creative person, it's you always see the flaws. No matter how perfect it is, you're going to be oh, if I had another week, if I had a different pen, if, at what point as a writer are you okay, this is good enough?
I argue never.
Yeah. Are you going to go back and make changes to
if
your
you fall
existing
down
book?
that rabbit hole, I argue literally never.
Right. But at some point, if you have a book sitting in front of you. At some point you said, I am quote unquote done. Mm-hmm. What was the thing that changed that from this is a book I'm working on to this is the book I have finished?
I have a deadline.
Oh my God. I always tell people, they're can you draw me something? I'm when do you need it? They go, whenever. I go, no, I can't do that.
3 years.
I go, I can't do that.
Well, it is a double-edged sword. You're either you're either right or you have a deadline, or you're independent and you're I don't have a deadline. I'll just keep writing it and writing it and writing it. And
Well, I am independent, but I make my own deadline. So
to make your book, you're just I'm going to be finished on July.
Like you said, otherwise
17th.
I'd be there all day just changing every sentence or no, I'll take out that. No, I'll do this.
Yep.
Julie, do you put deadlines on yourself, or how does?
I have to put deadlines on myself, or
I'll
else.
take a slice of pizza too. No worries.
Yeah, I definitely give myself deadlines, but at the same time, I stand behind my decisions in my books.
Yeah.
And after having a round of beta readers, and everybody has something different to say about what they liked and what they didn't like. If I've got reasons for why I did it and what I liked about it, it's my goddamn book. So, that's when I stop writing it. When I'm happy with the decisions that were made, when I'm happy with how it came out and what it says, that's when I'm done with it.
When you're happy with your own decisions, what's that like?
I'll let you know, because it only happens with those 6 books downstairs.
Yeah.
Hold on,
Yeah.
I could explain that a little bit. You're very happy with the decisions when you make them, and the next day you wake up and you look at it and you're was I high?
Oh, that's why you don't look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you don't look at. Other people don't look at their reviews. I don't look at my book.
Yeah.
When it's done, till somebody tells me that I have to go over it again. All done.
So you mentioned beta readers, and I have always been a big fan of giving my work to someone who's going to judge it honestly. And it sounds easy, but it's not. So many people want to spare your feelings or just are oh, I love it. My youngest downstairs is making T-shirts and is brutally honest. So I will send them and they'll be bro. Actually, now they're girl. And then, but do you have that person in your life where you're just like, I'm going to send this to you and you're going to be brutally honest and you're going to tell me what needs to be changed? And
My editor is,
yeah.
whoo,
Did it make you cry?
ruthless. I love it.
Yeah.
No, never will make me cry. I mean, he's ruthless, but it always has a purpose behind it. And, you have to read the notes and give yourself a day to not be pissed. And then you go back and say how right
Because
they
the
all
first
were.
thing is it feels like you're being attacked.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you're like, ah.
And I'm an
But-
editor.
yeah.
I mean, I do developmental editing for novels. I do editing for my full-time job. And, so I'm accustomed to that now. But I know on the other end, I always say, give yourself a few days or a week because you are going to hate me and hate your book and never want to do this again.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to let it sink in. You have to let yourself get over the emotions and go through all the 7 stages of grief. And
And then you just give it to your mom, and they're like, "It's awesome, honey."
oh, you never give it to your mom. No,
my mom.
No.
No, I know your mom. Is she like a hard critic or?
To me, she is.
Really?
Yeah.
She's a very
She
sweet
likes,
woman.
she likes my books, though. Oh, she's nice.
Yeah.
But she's honest.
She's nice.
That's good.
Nice is one of the worst things to say. Like, she's so nice.
What about Alex? Who's brutally honest to you?
That's Jake.
Did I say Alex? Oh my
Who
god.
the hell is Alex?
Jake.
I thought you were talking
Sorry.
to the
I just
DJ
called him
No,
classmate.
no, sorry. It's
The most honest
Roger?
person to me. Well, I mean, I have an editor. It's because it was my friend Allison. I had approached her.
See, I was thinking
and-
Allison. That's why I said Alex.
Right,
Lies.
that's exactly it. You knew what I was going to say before.
Yeah.
Robert?
Well, if you've read the book, you'd know that, Andy.
All right.
No, so I had approached her because I needed some. She's an artist, so I needed creature design for the final chapter, where it's in the book. It's somebody writing about the monsters that he's capturing. So she started doing that, but she's also a marine biologist, just unrelated to that. So she started advising me on that, and she also had a job briefly as a print supervisor. She trained me at that job, so she used her skills to edit. So she did like 3 different roles on this book.
Yeah.
And I dedicated the book to her in the front there, where I just listed all the things she did to make this book happen. Like this book would exist without her, but it wouldn't be what it is without her. Is what I'm saying. And yeah, so that would be my harshest critic, and I would send some stories to her, and she'd be like, well, this is disappointing. You should change the opening to this, and that. And then sometimes I'd send her a story, and she'd be like, this is the best thing ever. I criticized the final paragraph, and that's it. So I'm like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
I would hope it's all sincere, like it's all honest. Like that's fantastic news. But yeah, she would always speak up her mind if she actually felt a certain way about it.
And where do you guys come up with your story ideas? I know I've had ideas that have kind of struck me from like listening to songs where I'm like, oh, this would be an interesting story based on this song, or like, do they just kind of come to you, or like?
So I could only write something that I've never seen before or read before. I would need something to be like something genuinely unique. This was because I watched every Universal monster movie, all the Draculas, Frankensteins, Wolfmans, and they were the first cinematic universe. They were the first people to cross over their movies. It was in like the 1940s. Frankenstein met the Wolfman in one movie.
They keep
And
trying to do it to
they
bring it back, and they
keep trying.
Not.
They got a
And-
theme park now.
They're not.
Yeah,
doing
they're
it.
trying
Got a
now.
theme
They
park.
don't know how to crack it. I do. So they kept crossing over their guys, and all those crossovers are supremely disappointing. Like the characters don't even meet. Like they're marketed as these big ensemble things.
I think we talked about this before.
we did that. I
Yeah.
spiraled into insanity after watching like all 100 of those movies. I'm like, why didn't you ever do this just once? So I did it.
Yeah.
I made it
Yeah.
happen. I did the story that I've always wanted to see as a movie. I did all original characters, heavily influenced by them, obviously, and I made the perfect one of those into like this decades-long, centuries-long saga within the context of the book. And yeah, so basically, it's something I've never seen before. Something
Yeah.
I've wanted to see for a while, and that's what my next book is too. If hypothetically it happens.
Do you want to like hint at what it's going to be about? Or? It's about an
No.
incredibly handsome guy that throws a horror convention at a brewery.
Yeah, yeah. His name's Alex. I'm pretty sure.
That's fair. I deserve that. I deserve that. I deserve
That
that,
was good.
Jake. Sorry. That was good. That was good.
Happy
Wow.
23rd, Alex.
Thanks, man. Caitlin, please
Caitlin?
Oh,
change the subject.
What was the question?
How do you come
Did I
up with
ask
your
a
ideas?
question? Oh, yeah. Where do your ideas come from?
The werewolf one, I don't remember. I was in my early 20s when I came up with that, and that idea's long gone. I have no idea. The new one, that one was brewing for like a long time. So I originally had the seed of that idea when I was in middle school. I wanted to write about a girl who moved into a house and it was haunted by a ghost and they fell in love even though it was impossible. And the seed of that idea came from the movie Casper, the very end scene.
I knew it.
But I didn't have like a solid plot when I was 12. And then always wanted to write that story and never came up with anything. And then I don't know what it was last year, I think I came up with it. I was just like 90s grunge. He's a musician that was on the rise, but then he was shot in his house before anything could come of it. And then a lot of it came out as I was writing. But yeah, started with Casper.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mine's different for every single book.
Okay.
The first series, and I'll get eye rolls for it, but I read Twilight when I was on maternity leave. That's how
Okay.
long ago this was, right?
A lot of people were doing that.
Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah.
were doing that, and I was brain dead. And you're on maternity leave. There's nothing going on up there, and I was just finally wandering Walmart. I'm like, I need this to read, and and I took it down, and I ate them up, and because they required very little brain input, and thank goodness for that, and there was just something about them. It was super ordinary with this underlying extraordinary thing, and I wanted that for an adult with somebody who has real fears and, a real life and real dreams and make it really dark and
So was
bloody
it a little bit of I can do this better or I can
Yeah.
do this so it more relates to me?
I can do it so it relates more to me.
Yeah.
Because I when I read a book, I want to like it.
No, yeah,
I don't
I
go
mean-
into it, to start criticizing and saying I can do it better, but I wanted it to feel more like me. And so that, I guess, answers the question of are you in your books? I really wanted it to relate to somebody in their 20s, in their 30s, and, and give them something a lot darker and something that, that scares them. I wanted it to scare them deep down,
Yeah.
not just gore or, anything like that. But when it comes to the Harpy, I was in one of those writing slumps. I couldn't come up with anything, and I forced myself to sit down and write. It's a formula. You have to trick yourself into doing it. So, I wrote the first line of it, which was, and it made no sense. I swallowed a hell splinter. Like, what the hell? Who would say that? What does it mean? What would it ever happen? And I went through that book, the first one, the very first of that series. I wrote the chapter titles first and made the story fit into it.
Oh, interesting.
And it was how the hell I ever got to where I got to with it. It incorporates Dante down to the nuts and bolts. It's got Roman mythology in it. It's, an abuse survivor. It's got suicide in it, and the suicide forest. It's wild. So how it ever got to that, how it ever turned into 3 books that really go together better than my first ones ever did is, I have no explanation for that.
I've never heard of anyone doing the chapter names.
Yeah, me neither.
first. Do you guys have like a system for like how you start writing? Do you do an outline? Do you just kind of
Oh no.
start hammering away on the keys?
Yeah, no, there's no outline. You can't
Yeah.
do that. That's like a rule. You
Yeah.
know?
What about Jake?
Never
and-
do a rule
Jake
again.
and at the end.
Well,
His name's Jake.
Jake in the end.
is it? Are you sure?
Yeah.
For
Pretty
like
sure.
what, like in terms of like starting the process. Look, I really enjoy the blank page. I really do. I think blank page, starting a new thing, is the easiest because you got nothing to follow it up with. You got nothing. You start fresh as is. I think the hardest part is when you're like 50 chapters in. You kind of got to go somewhere specific in the back of your mind, but you're not really sure how to get there. And you have to generate more chapters that thematically, suggest and lean back to the chapters you've already written, but also suggest where you're going, and character arcs are building, and there's conflictions, and you got to balance the stuff that already exists. But when you're starting, oh man, is that a good feeling? It's scary. I shouldn't let myself keep starting books just because I know, I got a Google Docs tab with 10 documents, and some vary from 50 chapters to 2 chapters to a couple sentences about swallowing hell pins or whatever the hell you got going on. I got the same
pins.
situation. So that's why I was saying finishing the book is the hardest part, because you have to sit down with a partially finished book, something that's 2/3 done. You got to sit there and commit yourself and be like, I'm going to spend all of my future time on this project so that I can get it done, so I can get it released and move on. And then it'll be out of the incomplete projects genre of things I'm working on.
Yeah,
So-
start at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Start at the end, and it always works.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that you have the document that you do that, because like I have a Word doc, and it's just like anytime I have an idea that's rattling around, I have to put it in that Word doc, because it almost then like allows my brain to go, you're allowed to think of something else now because it's on paper and you won't forget it.
But that becomes a shopping list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't open it often, so it's just like I know it's there, so it's just like I'm not worried about forgetting it, and just kind of the worst part is just that list just keeps growing.
Well, that's what I was
Yeah.
going to say. Like, I used to have a Google Doc where I would just put like a 1 or 2 sentence idea over and over again, different things. But that, I realized like I never spent any time going in there and like taking that and making it into a story. I always just keep adding and adding. And I was like, at some point, this is just pointless. Like,
Well, it's weird. It's like it's a kind of a running joke on one of our podcasts where we have a Google Doc shared between the three of us, and we'll be like, "Oh, this will be a good topic. This will be a good topic. It's a good topic." And our researcher every episode is like, "This one's not from the doc," and we're all like, "Yeah, we know." Like none of them are from the Google
You
Doc.
got to keep the muscles flexed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was one that we did recently that we're like, "What is this about?" And she's like, "Oh, it's about the robot Mayflower," and we're like, "I don't." And then it was just like all like started to come back, and you're like, "Oh my god, who put that on the Google Doc?" And like, yeah, so it's weird how it's nice to have when you're like, it is time to create something, and I don't have something to create, because you can jump to that.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like where ideas go to die in a weird way.
Cailin,
if you let them die.
Yeah. Do you have a Google Doc, Cailin?
Yeah, but I work on one idea at a time. Like I don't let
Overachiever.
I don't let myself start one book and then go to another, or I won't finish it. I learned that early on because I started writing in middle school. And I found when I jumped to scenes that I wanted to write first or whatever, then like I'd never finished. So I start with chapter 1 and I end with the end, and kind of just
wow.
Oh my
to
god.
Damn.
We need to hang out, because I'm just
Yeah, I need
You
that
are
commitment.
I know. I just can't even
Jeez.
focus that much.
My first book, I start in the middle. I have one scene, like, just.
I'm just more like
Well, see,
email,
if I write
text
the
message,
favorite
squirrel.
scene first, then then I won't write the rest of the boring stuff, quote unquote.
So do you save your
So I
favorite
save
scene?
it as like a treat, like, oh, now I get to write that.
Oh, that's
later on.
interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So kind of like you have like, oh, this is the scene in my head that's inspiring the book.
Yeah.
I now have to write everything else to
Yeah,
get
or
to
you
that.
can't write that yet.
That seems like a really smart way to do it.
Yeah, it does.
Because I would just write that scene and then never get to the rest of it.
Yeah, well, I did that, but when I learned that early, when I was like 13, and I was like, oh, can't do that again, or I'm never gonna write the rest of it.
Interesting.
I don't think I learned things at 13.
Nothing good. Alex, do you oh my god.
No
I-
way.
See, I would think
Listen,
you did that as a joke.
No,
but
this
you
is
totally
I-
called
I-
yourself out.
no.
Wow.
This is you have no idea how
Who is
often
Alex? Is this a real person?
I'm sure there's an Alex somewhere.
You're sure
Oh my
there's
God.
an Alex?
So all right,
Richard?
I'm gonna out myself here,
Back to
Jake.
you.
We did a episode of Bar Talk, and we recorded it, and I introduced this guy. I'm like, oh, we're here with Mel, and they're like, that's Lou. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, it's Lou, blah blah, Lou.
I like how
Lou.
they're not even in the same realm
Not
of
even
sounds.
close.
Not
The
even close.
whole episode. Then
Are you sure you're not Alex?
Yeah,
Okay,
he's not
just
Alex. So then
You need index
I
cards.
do. I had planned on doing.
You
prep
know,
work,
I was given this shirt last event and told that like, hey, I can get this for free if I wear it at the next event. That's now today.
Yeah.
And I am so heartbroken and disrespected at my name being listed.
Listen, and so anyways, so we finished recording the first episode, we take a break, and we come back, and I'm like, we're here with Mel, and everyone's like, his name's Lou. Like, I apologize, but I would
he's
love to say
okay.
it's not going to happen again. It's going to happen again.
Yeah,
And I
honestly,
don't know why Alex.
Alex isn't even that bad of a name. I'll take
know.
it, honestly.
kind of like Alex.
Yeah, I
Better
like
than the
Alex.
kid.
I got Alex vibes.
Yeah,
I
a
get
little
the
bit.
feeling of Alex, you know.
Yeah.
What
I
was
grew up
the
on Alex
question?
P. Keaton, you know.
I even know what the question was at this point.
Was there there was no
There was a
question?
question, and then I totally derailed the whole conversation. So, Jake,
Who's that? Is that?
I apologize.
Back to business, people.
Yeah, so Hometown Haunts and Hops, this is your second year.
Yep.
I have to pull this back together. And how's your experience last year? What are you guys looking forward to this year?
My experience last year was awesome. I met a lot of great people, including everyone on this table here. And I was looking forward to doing this again for very similar reasons. I know we were texting this morning, Julie and I were like, oh, it's raining, no one's going to come. And I was like, yeah, but who cares? It's going to be all of us hanging out again, just shooting the shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good enough reason to go alone. So, yeah, it's going to be nice. And I'm hoping for equally as exciting situations and events next year. So,
Good
Awesome.
answer.
hoping.
How about you, Julie? Julie, you've been doing our events for a while.
You like me a lot.
I don't remember when I first met you, but I feel like my life changed that day.
Yeah, I get that a lot. No.
It's a nice line. It's a good
Yeah.
line.
No, thank you. Thank you. And likewise, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
we've done so many events
Several,
together.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
You know, but the HorrorCon last year was, I mean, Hometown Haunts and Hops was so good last year. I got to hang out with the mean cheerleader from Scream all day. All day.
Oh yeah, you were right next to her, weren't you?
All day.
Yep.
We had the best time. It was so much fun. And this year, I get to meet the Crypt Keeper, and I've been bragging about that
Super nice guy.
everywhere.
He's been very nice. I've talked to him briefly because this morning was very hectic, but
I can't wait.
very, very nice
I
guy.
can't wait to meet him. I'm so excited. So yeah, I mean that, and I mean we met last year at this.
I think so, yeah.
Me and Jake. Yeah. So and me and you.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you sent Jake to us last year.
No,
No?
we met. I sent him to you this year.
No,
You're thinking of
I know-
Alex.
I'm thinking Alex. No, Jake, I met last year because I went to get copies made, and you're like, "What's this about?"
Yes.
and I'm like, "I'm just doing
Yes.
this like HorrorCon."
I occasionally do some printing and marketing on the
Yes.
side.
He's my Staples guy.
It's like a quick little 40 hours a week. It just pays all the bills. Nothing crazy. But like this is my real situation. It's the book, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah. And Cailin, how was this year versus last year?
I mean, I've only been here for an hour, so.
Yes.
True.
You got that going.
Yeah, but I had fun last year. You know, my parents are always like, "How much money did you make?" I'm like, "Well, I always bring a friend with me, who's down there at my table right now." So I'm like, at the end of the day, we just got to hang out the whole day.
Yeah.
How is it
it's fun.
having friends? Is that like a nice thing? We've just abandoned our booths. We don't care.
That's all right. They're running trivia down there right now. So.
Oh, are they?
I think so. But no, I want to say thank you to you guys for taking part.
Oh.
Jake, I'm so sorry.
I call him the
I'm
kid.
pretty
So, I
certain
mean,
I'm going to call you Alex for the rest of the day. Not ironically, just because this is how my brain works.
I'll take some guy. That's
Some
not
guy.
bad.
All right.
And
All
then-
right. All right.
Yeah.
Is your middle name Alex? By any chance?
My middle name is some guy.
Some guy.
Yeah, not even close.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We're excited to be here.
I love hanging out with my friends, and I love when we do events and strangers become friends, and I feel like that's how we all became friends.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad you're having fun. And I think we're going to get ready. There's the next panel coming in.
Yeah, the Ectomobile's here, so I got to go.
The Ectomobile is here, so I got to figure out where the hell they put it because I don't know.
Well, you don't have to figure it out. It's already there.
Oh, okay, so it's very close. Nice. So you guys want your picture in the Ectomobile? Let me know. I could probably hook that up.
I want my picture in the Ectomobile.
It was my profile picture for a very long time last year because my other picture was I went to the guys with the Raccoon City police cruiser and be like, "Can you guys
Yes.
arrest me?" And they're like, "Yeah, we can."
Yes.
And my friend took the photo, and I'm like, "This is gonna be my profile picture." And then I looked at it, I'm like, "Oh no, it just looks like I'm getting arrested." But I know it's raining. Hopefully, it's died down so people can enjoy those here. And again, thank you guys. So
Thank you.
it's not a huge audience, but make sure you check out their books, Julie, Cailin, and Alex.
Right?
That felt
Jake
that,
Camara.
that was
felt
intentional. That was
The first
intentional.
time this
Jake
show has
Camara.
been
Yeah, that was
earnest.
the first time I did that in person. No, Jake, I'm sorry. But check out their books and check out the other vendors. And thank you guys. Love you.
Love you too.
Love you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.